Okay, great. So let's get this show on the road. I will be inviting the next set of people to join me on stage. First off, I'm so glad that we're talking online and digital matters, and we have quite a number of ladies represented in this panel. First off, allow me to bring on stage Dr. Shiko Gitau, who is the Chief Executive Officer at QHALA. I hope I said that correct. At KALA. My apologies. I'll help you. Yes. All right, joining Shiko on stage is Elizabeth Wanja. She's a program manager for the Africa Center for Women in ICT. You know it's okay to clap, right? Thank you. And finally, you had him on stage before. He presented a very detailed paper. Let's have Professor Tom Kwanya from the Technical University of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of this. This is really exciting for me because now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of this. We're really getting to understand our market and really getting to figure out what really is our role. And I think when we started in the morning, we opened by saying, how do we find what our role is and how do we best play in that space? But just to kick us off, I'll start with Dr. Shiko first because I massacred your business's name. So I'll give you a chance to tell us a little bit about what KALA does in this space. Sorry, I'll ask you to use your microphone. Are the mics on? This is like Zoom, yeah? We can't find the mute button.
Can you hear me? Oh yeah, you can hear me now. So thank you, Bonnie, and the team at GIZ, and that very hard name that I can't actually say, who put this together and for inviting us and allowing us to share our work. So KALA is a digital innovation lab. We're very specific in calling ourselves a lab because our goal is to be able to be continuously learning. Okay, thank you. We provide support, advisory, and sometimes program management services on anything digital across the country. So we have a research team that works around policy, program, and product research. So we help people who are trying to come into the continent and want to build a product. We help them do from user research and exploratory research to actually user testing. We do policy research, and this is important, especially in a digital age where there's lots of gaps in policy. You have no idea until you start doing something and you're told, oh, that is regulated or not regulated, and you have to start thinking around it. And program, we work with many, especially donor organizations who are trying to think of a program that they need to introduce into the country or continent, and we help them design the programs and sometimes program manage them. Then we have a robust data science team. So if you guys, the Kenyans, last year you heard the president saying that the experts told me. You remember that statement? So we were the experts.
Oh, it's you guys.
Yeah, it's us guys. You blame us for closing down Nairobi. I remember that actual decision is something we worked on for 2 nights without sleep, because we needed to map out what does Nairobi actually entail, and we used mobility data showing if you left Kencom and went to the farthest place that people moved to, where is the farthest place. So it was not just a decision, it was an economic decision of making sure that Nairobi actually operates if there's a shutdown. So we use data science to inform policy, program, and product. And our biggest work was this on COVID, and now we actually provide support for the Ministry of Health in terms of responding to other incidences around health. Then we have engineering, so we build everything, platforms, mobile apps, and stuff. And then we have a venture studio where we work with subject matter experts to respond to Africa's most persistent problems. So that is KALA in 2 seconds.
Thank you. And I just wanted that to be clear, because we talk about people playing in this space, and I think it's important to have actual real companies who are involved in this space. So let's just zoom out a little bit and look broadly at Kenya. Prof, in the morning you gave us a quick look at the Kenyan market, at what roles are available, who plays where. If you could just paint a really quick picture of what's working for Kenya as far as online jobs are concerned.
Not sure where the phone. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, true. We looked at the landscape of the gig economy in Kenya, trying to paint a picture of it. And beginning for the numbers, as we said in the morning, about 37,000. But there's a bit of a discrepancy about that number, because this was a figures as of 2019. And of course, from where I sit as an academic, we look at what we call credible sources that we can cite. So if there's none yet, we cite the latest, which in this case was 2019. And in between also in the literature, I mentioned in the morning that we also saw that there are certain estimations putting this figure at a very high point, about 1 million or so. And so what we were saying is that probably the real figure lies somewhere in between. But what that means is gig work is real. It means gig work is real in Kenya. And the numbers notwithstanding, and again, there was also the indication that numbers are growing. And in the discussion, we also realized that in the recent past, the numbers may have grown in response to COVID, the challenges that came with it, and digital spaces being looked at as the other alternative or option in the absence of physical interactions. And most of the gig workers are doing all manner of things, on-site, off-site, online and on-site, and a lot of them from our data work in the retail, getting e-commerce, retail and wholesale sales that they do on platforms, selling products, selling services on behalf of either local companies or international companies. In some cases, acting as selling merchandise. Yeah. And again, the
Sorry, use mine.
Sorry about that. The next most popular, if I may call it, is transport and shared ride. And again, there the numbers are very high. And looking at the bigger picture in terms of who is involved, in terms of gender, most of them are men, about 80%, and the female gender, the other balance. Looking at age, again, the larger majority of them from 35 years downwards. For the ladies, most of them just the majority at under 25 and a little more up to 35, but none above 35. In terms of education, we saw most of them are high schoolers. people who have high school qualification and nothing more. In terms of length, most of them have worked for 3 years and below, and not many have gone beyond 5 years. In our conversations during lunchtime with one of, I think, Anthony, he picked out that there were actually 2 from our data who had worked for 11 years. And we just want to find out how they maintained, that length of time, because the majority of them are working for under 3 years. And then most of them view themselves, about 80%, 68%, sorry if I mix up the percentages, and viewing themselves as full-time employees. Yeah. But on the other hand, the platform owners view them as autonomous independent contractors who get paid for work they do for the period that they work. And of course, many issues that can emerge out of that would, go into conflicts and stuff. In terms of contracts, a large majority of them have contracts, but about 20% do not have contracts. And again, that means a lot in terms of, such discrepancies. If they don't have contracts, then how are they engaged? Many challenges in terms of, regulation. Of course, trying to balance the needs of the table for their families. And that's why they view themselves, because that's all they do. But on the other hand, it's just a side hustle for some people. And so it's important that we're able to balance that here is a group of people working to earn a living and put food on their table. And so should we stop at just being enabling them to just put food on their table? Or should we think about that work, making sure it is decent, it is dignifying, and that their rights are not violated? And on the other hand, are platform owners who are largely business people interested in the bottom line, making profit, and trying to minimize costs at whatever level and be able to reduce their costs of production, in this case, production of wealth. And so, so there need to be a balance which is able to take the needs of the platform owners and also the gig workers that are working through the platforms. And that can largely come through regulation. Now, that's the conversation that we're inviting you to participate in. What kind of regulation should this be? Is it self-regulation? Is it government, mediated regulation? Or what kind of regulation? But at the end of the day, it seems that could be the mechanism through which we can realize socially just gig work in Kenya.
Right. Prof, very interesting set of highlights that you've put out there. And I like the fact that we're asking the question that should gig work move from sustainability or putting food on the table to innovation, to a bit more specialties? And we'll get back to that. But also you talked about 80% of these people being men, and women are left out. And Elizabeth Wanja's one job is to ensure that we have a lot more women in this space. Elizabeth, when you hear such numbers, what goes through your mind, and especially in respect to the work that you do? We're not winning with microphones. Could you just have a different one? Go for it, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question. And I'm seated here to talk from the implementation perspective. We have discussed so much of what is expected of these gig workers, the regulations and all that. But I'm seated here having implemented such projects for quite a long time. So when we talk about this gender imbalance, when we talk about the policies, when we talk about what is expected of the gig workers, I think my sharing will be more informed from discussions that we have had in the morning. In the African Center for Women in ICT, we are an ICT for development, and our main work is to skill the online workers. So when we talk about the skilling of online workers, someone would be interested to know, how do we get them? Who are these online workers? Someone would want us to unpack it. Who is this that we are talking about, and what is the process? Because there were some questions that came during the group discussions of someone asking, how do I get to the platform owners? When we talk about Upwork, where is this Upwork? Where am I supposed to get it? So that's the work that we do on day-to-day basis to ensure that our youths, I'll talk about women later, but allow me first to focus on the need for skills, because we talk about having a market, but the product must be there. So when we are talking about Kenya being number 4, being all these, the question that we come back to is, are you skilled to take up those opportunities? So the main work that we do with the support of UKDAB is to ensure that these youths are skilled. And in terms of skilling, we understand they are coming from different levels. So we'll start skilling from the basic digital literacy level. And in basic digital literacy level, we are looking at you who have not interacted with the computing devices. And please, online work is not computer packages. We'll get back to differentiate that later. But you who completed Form 4, maybe you went to a certain TVET, but you have not interacted with computing devices, you join the digital literacy skilling by doing the basic and interact with those computing devices. Don't look at computing devices from a phone, because some of these are underserved, they are vulnerable. So look at it from a smartphone, not from a laptop or a desktop. We'll go to the second level of intermediate digital skilling, and that is what we have been discussing throughout this day. Because in intermediate digital skilling, it's someone who have moved from the basic. When you move from the basic and you go to the intermediate, you are looking at an opportunity to make money online. Right. So it's just not about having the skill itself, but how are you making incomes, how are you improving your livelihoods using the intermediate. And that is where we bring the online workers and so many other career paths, the data science, data analytics, the computer science, all that falls under that intermediate digital skilling. There is the level that some of these people go, and that is the advanced. And at advanced level, we are talking about the e-solutions. So my main concern is that the intermediate, where we have skilled, and most of these digital freelancers, that is where they are in. When we skill you, what is it that we are skilling you? We are now skilling you to work online. And we are looking at you having an account, you knowing the different platforms that are there. You can do all that, but you don't even know how you'll be paid. So those are the areas of